Logan did not even wait for the room to quiet before he raised his voice. "Pay the rent or get out," he shouted, loud enough for every one of the 22 people at that long Thanksgiving table to hear him. A few relatives gasped. Someone dropped a fork. A little boy near the end of the table began to cry. And then, Tessa, my daughter-in-law with the perfect hair and the permanent smirk, leaned back in her chair and said, almost lazily, "Let's see how you survive without us. My name is Marion Haverhill, 69 years old, mother of one son who used to be tender and kind before the world convinced him that cruelty looked like strength." I stood there holding the serving spoon, the words still ringing in my ears. A cousin whispered, "Is he really doing this to his mother?" Another reached slowly for her phone and angled it as if she were checking messages. But I saw the red recording light. I felt heat rise into my face, then drop like a stone into my stomach. For a moment, humiliation wrapped itself around my ribs. Then something colder, quieter, stronger settled in its place, an old part of me I had buried long ago to keep peace. Logan pushed his chair back. "Well, are you going to answer me?" I didn't. I simply set the spoon down, wiped my hands on the front of my apron, and looked at him the way a stranger might look at a stranger. Tessa let out a small laugh, sharp and delighted. She has nothing to say. Typical. Their friends stared. Logan's co-workers stiffened. No one spoke. And for the first time since I had moved into my son's home, I realized how little space I took up in it. I turned away. My chair scraped as I stood, and that sound cut through the room more than Logan's shouting had. I started down the hallway, ignoring the murmurs behind me. She must be embarrassed. I would be. Logan went too far. What a mess. Halfway to the guest bedroom, a hand brushed mine. It was Elise, my niece on my late husband's side, quiet, observant, usually too nervous to speak above a whisper. She pressed a folded note into my palm and whispered, trembling, "Do not let them do this to you again." I did not open it. In the bedroom, I pulled my suitcase from under the bed. I had brought only a few things when I moved in 3 blouses, 2 pairs of slacks, my winter coat, a jewelry box with nothing valuable inside, and a framed photograph of my husband Arthur. Packing took less than 3 minutes. Outside the room, I could still hear Tessa complaining loudly, trying to justify their behavior as if she were rehearsing for an audience. Logan was pacing his footsteps uneven, angry, unsure. I zipped the suitcase. The sound sliced through the air, final and clean. When I stepped back into the hallway, Logan appeared at the other end. "Where do you think you're going?" he asked. I didn't answer him then. I walked past him, past the table full of guests who looked everywhere but at me, and toward the front door. No one stopped me. My hand closed around the doorknob, because what happens when the person you think you control stops playing along? Love used to feel simple. Back when Logan was small enough to fit on my hip, and his entire world was whoever tucked him into bed at night. Somewhere along the way, that kind of love warped into something else. Something that let him believe he could speak to me the way he did. I dragged my suitcase out to the porch. But before I stepped off the property, the memories pushed in sharp, loud, unforgiving. I could still see Arthur laughing in our old Tacoma kitchen 30 years ago, Flour dusting his sleeves as he pretended to bake with Logan. Logan had been 5, all dimples and curiosity. He used to call me Mommy with a softness that could melt iron. Arthur died 2 years later. Sudden, unexpected. A heart attack that took less than 2 minutes to end the life I thought I would have forever. I worked in the Tacoma shipyard offices back then, filing paperwork and answering calls for supervisors who rarely bothered to learn my name. I kept that job because it gave steady hours. I took night classes because I refused to let our lives shrink smaller than Arthur would have wanted. And every bill, every deadline, every scraped-together grocery run was mine to handle alone. Logan never saw the nights I cried quietly at the kitchen table, buried under forms and overdue notices. He only saw the morning after, when I tied his shoes and walked him to school with a smile. People told me I was strong. I never felt strong, just determined. As Logan grew older, his sweetness faded into something brittle. He started talking over me, correcting me, acting like I was a burden he needed to manage. He never knew that I held our entire world together while pretending to need nothing. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe I taught him to believe love required silence. In the middle of the sidewalk, I stopped walking. The air was cold enough to sting my fingers, but the memory that struck me warmed nothing. The inheritance. I had never told a soul about it, not even my sister Elaine, who loved gossip more than breathing. Arthur's parents left me a policy after their passing, one worth a little over $200,000. It was meant to be protected for Logan's future. College. A home. Something with meaning. I guarded it for years. But when Logan turned 21, he convinced me he wanted to start a business, something meaningful that would make his father proud. He spoke with such certainty that I released part of the money, just enough to help him begin without overwhelming him. He burned through every dollar in 1 year. Then he told me the market had been cruel. He never asked where the money truly came from. He never imagined he had already spent the future I protected for him. He believed I had nothing. He believed I needed saving. I tightened my grip on the suitcase handle. A passing neighbor gave me a sympathetic glance, as if sensing something had cracked beyond repair. I kept walking, my shoes hitting the pavement with a rhythm that felt like a drum counting down to something inevitable. Because if silence built the child who shouted at me tonight, truth might be the only thing strong enough to break whatever he has become. The night air hit my face the moment I stepped off Logan's porch. But the voices I left behind carried after me whispers slicing through the doorway before it shut. Did she really just walk out like that? Well, what was she supposed to do? Oh, come on, he's under pressure. Young families get overwhelmed. I heard every word even as I walked down the driveway. They had 22 mouths, and not one of them had opened for me while I stood in that room. I had barely reached the street when the front door opened again. The guests poured out in clusters, coats pulled tight, voices low. Logan shouldn't have said it like that, but she has been staying there for free. Someone muttered. A younger woman shot back. It doesn't matter. You do not humiliate your mother in front of a crowd. Near the porch, 2 men argued. She overreacted. One said, "My mom would have laughed it off. Your mother wouldn't have been spoken to that way." Then a sharper, colder voice cut through them. Tessa's mother. Delphine. "Finally," she said. Loud enough for half the neighborhood, he put his foot down. That woman has been dragging him down for years. And he finally saw it. Someone inhaled sharply. A man whispered, "Delphine." That was his mother. Delphine shrugged. Maybe. But she never acted like a mother. She acted like a bill. The words hit harder than Logan's shouting had. From where I stood beneath the street lamp, I watched them like a stranger watching a play, each person deciding which role to play now that the main character had exited. On the porch, Logan rubbed his forehead, pacing in tight circles. "She'll calm down," he insisted to a coworker. It was tough love. She needed to hear it. "Tough love," the man repeated. "Logan, you yelled at her like she was a tenant who skipped out on rent." Logan's jaw tightened. "She's been living off us for almost 2 years. I'm allowed to set boundaries." A woman near him murmured, "Boundaries don't require cruelty." Logan ignored her. Tessa wrapped her arm around his waist. "Baby, relax. You did the right thing. Everyone knows parents get clingy at that age." A few people exchanged horrified glances, but no one confronted her. Not really. Not fully. A group of teenagers hovered near the steps, all pretending to scroll their phones. Their screens reflected pale light on their faces, none of them looking up, but all of them recording earlier. I recognized one girl, a neighbor's niece named Rowan. She slipped away from her group and approached me with quick, anxious steps. "Mrs. Haverhill," she whispered. I turned. She looked around, then pulled out her phone and tapped the screen until a video appeared. The moment Logan slammed his hand on the table and shouted at me. "I recorded some of it earlier," she said. "I didn't know if I should delete it, but I thought you should have it." She pressed a button and sent it to my phone before I could react. Why, I asked softly. Because no one deserves to be talked to like that. Not even for a second. She didn't wait for a reply. She jogged back toward her group, wiping her eyes. Behind her, I saw Tessa laughing loudly at something Delphine said, her voice dripping with false sympathy as she retold the moment I walked out. She looked so lost. Tessa said, honestly, "Logan was patient. My husband is a saint." Logan didn't correct her. He just stood there, letting the story shape itself in their hands. I stared down at the video Rowan had sent me. My face in the recording looked older, but not weak, more like a woman reaching the end of a long, exhausting rope. The truth was there now, not in whispered gossip, not in excuses, not in the stories they would tell to soften their own discomfort. The truth was on camera. And soon, the world would see exactly what I had endured in silence for far too many years. I closed the guest bedroom door behind me and let the silence settle over my shoulders. It felt heavier than my suitcase. I knew I could not take much with me. This was never truly my home, just a place I occupied until Logan decided otherwise. I opened the closet and pulled out the few things I had brought when I moved in 3 blouses, 2 pairs of slacks, my wool coat, and the small jewelry box Arthur gave me on our 10th anniversary. I folded everything slowly, carefully, as if neat lines could hold together a life that was unraveling. When I reached for the photo frame on the nightstand, my fingers trembled. It slipped from my hand and hit the carpet with a soft thud. Arthur's face stared up at me, warm eyes, steady smile. The kind of man who never raised his voice unless he was cheering for someone. "Arthur," I whispered as I picked up the frame. "You would not have believed what our boy just did." One tear fell onto the glass. Only one. I wiped it away with the sleeve of my blouse before it could become anything more. A soft rustle in the hallway made me freeze. Someone was outside my door. Marion Logan's voice, muffled, nervous. Can we talk? Just for a second." My heart twisted. But before I could move, another voice cut through, sharp and impatient. "Logan, stop," Tessa hissed. "Let her go. She'll crawl back when she realizes she needs us." "I did not say that," he muttered. But he sounded unsure. "You implied it," she shot back. "And you were right. She has nowhere else to go." My entire chest went still. Not from the cruelty I had come to expect that from Tessa, but from the way Logan did not correct her. Footsteps shifted. Logan's shadow moved under the doorframe. "I should at least know," Tessa snapped. "If she leaves angry, it's better. She'll come back apologizing." Another pause. Then, "You think so, I know so." Their voices faded down the hall. I stood there for a long moment, my hand braced on the dresser. Breath caught between fury and something colder, maybe disappointment, maybe acceptance. The final items went into the suitcase: my toothbrush, my small makeup bag, the folded note from Elise that I still hadn't opened. When I zipped the suitcase shut, the sound felt like a door closing somewhere inside me. I walked out without looking back. As I stepped into the hallway, the chatter from the living room grew louder, Tessa retelling the incident as if it were a funny story. Logan defending himself half-heartedly, guests muttering in low, uncertain tones. No one asked where I was going. No one stepped aside to stop me. They simply let the air part around me like I was something that no longer belonged there. At the front door, I paused long enough to adjust my coat. I gripped the handle, and I walked out. The cold hit quickly, but it felt cleaner than the warmth inside that house ever had. Because once the people you love turn into strangers, the world outside becomes the only place left to go. I drove north through Tacoma with my suitcase in the back seat, and the echo of Logan's voice still scraping at the inside of my skull. The farther I got from his house, the more the tension loosened from my shoulders. By the time I turned onto the quiet street in the North End, my hands had finally stopped shaking. The cottage came into view small, pale blue, with a porch light that had automatically turned on at dusk. I had owned this place for over 20 years. Logan never knew. I never told him, not because I wanted secrecy, but because I knew how resentment could twist inside him. The moment he learned I owned property outright, he would have said, "Mom, why are you wasting money on that place? Sell it. Put it toward the house we need." And he would have meant his house. I parked and stepped out. The cold air smelled faintly of cedar and ocean salt, something familiar enough to calm the tightening in my throat. The front door next to mine opened. Marian, a voice called. "Mrs. Granger shuffled down her steps in her quilted robe, her white hair tied into a loose bun. She moved as fast as her aging knees allowed and reached me before I could lift the suitcase from the trunk. "My goodness, sweetheart. We thought you were traveling for the holiday." Her eyes scanned my face. She saw the truth in one glance. "Oh," she whispered, "it's one of those nights." I nodded, unable to speak for a moment. She laid a warm hand on my arm. "You come inside tomorrow for breakfast. I'll make coffee. You look like you need someone to sit beside you more than you need questions." That simple kindness hit harder than anything Logan had said. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Thank you," I managed. I might take you up on that." "You better," she said, patting my cheek before shuffling back toward her porch. Inside the cottage, everything was exactly as I had left it months ago, quiet, modest, but mine. Every chair, every picture on the wall, every dish in the cabinet had a story I had earned without apology. I set the suitcase down in the living room and walked straight to the small study in the back. The safe was behind a stack of old quilts. I knelt, entered the combination I had memorized years ago, and opened it. The documents inside were untouched. The deed to the cottage, my savings account statements, the inheritance summary from Arthur's parents. The file with every investment I had built slowly, carefully, alone. My entire financial independence sat inside that metal box, quiet and undeniable. For years, I had kept all of it hidden, afraid that if Logan saw the truth, he would ask for more than I could safely give. Now, staring at those papers, I felt something shift inside me. Not relief, not triumph, something steadier. Something like a beginning. I closed the safe, locked it, and stood up. This was home. The one part of my life Logan could never take credit for or take away. And for the first time in a long while, I let myself breathe deeply, knowing that reclaiming this life would ask more of me than silence ever had. The cottage was quiet enough that I could hear the click of the safe's hinges as I opened it again the next morning. I sat at the desk with a stack of folders spread out in front of me, each one holding proof of the life I had funded while pretending I could afford to be generous. I started with the thickest file, Logan's mortgage. Years of payments, each one highlighted neatly, each one withdrawn directly from my account. I had set it up the day he told me, with a hopeful smile. "Mom, the bank approved me, but the interest rate is brutal, just until I get settled." That had been 8 years earlier. I whispered into the room, "I kept your home standing." Logan. Though the only answer was the hum of the heater. Next came the smaller folder, Tessa's boutique. Her dream, her pride, the thing she bragged about to every friend, every cousin, every stranger with a pulse. She had begged me to co-sign the loan. She told me her parents could not help, and that her credit was just going through a weird phase. I never told her that I repaid the entire loan myself after she defaulted twice. I did it quietly, hoping she would eventually grow into the responsibility. It never happened. The papers of Logan's 2 failed ventures came next. His voice echoed in my memory, enthusiastic, desperate, always reaching for something just out of his grasp. Mom, this is it. This is the one. I just need a little boost. I had given him tens of thousands across those ventures, watching him burn through them with the same reckless hope. I had eaten soup for dinner more nights than I wanted to admit, so I could cover the debts his pride never let him acknowledge. I rubbed a hand over my face. I taught you to ask, but I never taught you to appreciate. When I reached the smallest envelope, one I barely remembered saving, I hesitated. It was thin, almost weightless. Inside was a single page from a repayment notice for a small business order. At the bottom, barely noticeable, was my signature. Except it was not mine. I held the paper closer. The curve of the M was wrong. The last name ended too abruptly. A forged signature. Tessa had used my name, my credit, my identity to finalize an order for her boutique. A minor purchase. Maybe. But a major betrayal. I felt something cold move through me. Not anger. Recognition. They had taken and taken. And taken not because they were evil, but because I had trained them to believe I would always be there to fix everything they broke. My phone buzzed. A text from Logan. Mom, can we talk later? Tessa thinks this is all a misunderstanding. I stared at the words until they blurred. Another message came through. We just want to clear the air. Come by tonight. There was no apology, no acknowledgement, just expectation. I set the phone down gently, as if sudden movement would shatter the last intact piece of who I used to be. I gathered the folders, closed the safe, and locked it with deliberate care. Each click felt like a door closing behind me, shutting out an old version of myself who thought love meant sacrifice without limits. The truth sat in neat stacks on my desk. Money had insulated them from consequences. Money had built their entitlement. Money had convinced them I had nothing of my own. I looked at the silent cottage around me, the home I owned, the life I built, the independence I protected, and felt a steadiness return. If money had created their arrogance, then losing access to it might finally force them to change. The question was not whether they would learn, it was how far they would fall before they did. The next morning, I made coffee strong enough to burn and sat at my little kitchen table with my phone and a yellow legal pad. I wrote one word at the top of the page. Stop. Then I started dialing. Good morning. This is Harbor Federal, a woman answered. My name is Jenna. How can I help you today? My name is Marion Haverhill. I said, I need to cancel an automatic transfer from my savings to an outside checking account ending in... I read the last 4 digits of Logan's. There was a pause on the line. All right, Ms. Haverhill. I see a recurring transfer on the first of each month in the amount of $1,800. Is this what you are referring to? Yes. I said, I want it stopped immediately. No future transfers, no exceptions. She hesitated. May I ask if there has been fraud? Or, there has been misuse, I cut in, keeping my voice even. But it was mine. I am choosing to end it. Another pause. Softer this time. Understood. I can suspend it now and mark it as permanently canceled. Do you want confirmation by email? By mail? I replied. I am done sending things that disappear into screens. When we hung up, my hand was shaking again, but not from fear. It felt like my nerves were waking up after too long a sleep. Next was the credit card company. Then the investment firm that handled a small portfolio I had built over decades. Each call had a similar rhythm. Are you sure? Ms. Haverhill. Yes. Even if this affects your family members' access, especially because of that. By noon, the pad of paper in front of me was filled with names and confirmation numbers. Every line meant one less lifeline for Logan to yank on whenever his own efforts failed. In the afternoon, I took the bus downtown. The tall buildings of central Tacoma rose up around the transit center, glass and steel and stone that always made me think of Arthur and how he used to point out architecture details when we walked together. The office of my attorney, Alma Ruiz, was on the 4th floor of an older brick building. I had met her once, years ago, when Arthur's parents' estate was settled. She had a sharp mind and a blunt way of speaking that I had appreciated even when it stung. She looked exactly the same when I stepped into her office, sleek gray hair, dark eyes that missed nothing. "Marian," she said, standing to shake my hand. "It has been a long time. I was surprised to get your message. Sit. Tell me what happened." I sat for the next 10 minutes. I told her everything. Not the feelings, not the tears, just the facts. Thanksgiving, Logan's words, Tessa's laugh, the years of payments, the forged signature I had found. Alma listened without interrupting. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. "All right," she said. "You are done being their bank. We can formalize that." She pulled a file from her cabinet and laid it on the desk. "First, your accounts. We will update your will, your beneficiaries, and remove any informal access your son may have assumed. Everything stays under your legal control." "Good," I said. "What about the house they live in, the one in South Tacoma?" she asked. "I have that file." She flipped pages until she found what she wanted. Her eyebrows rose slightly. "Marian, you do understand this property is legally yours?" "Correct. I backed the mortgage." I said Logan qualified, but he needed help at the start. She shook her head. "No, you refinanced 3 years ago after his second business failed. At that point, the title transferred fully into your name. He is listed as an occupant, not an owner." I blinked. "Are you certain I wrote the documents?" She replied, "You could sell that house tomorrow. You could evict him next month. He has no legal claim beyond tenant rights." Something settled in my chest, heavy and cold, then strangely light. "So," I said quietly, "he has been yelling at the landlord to pay rent." Alma's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "It appears so." She slid a few forms toward me. "We are not making decisions today about eviction, but we are drawing a line. No more undocumented help, no more verbal promises. You choose what you give and how, and you can withdraw it at any time." I took the pen and signed where she indicated. Each signature felt like a small release, a knot loosening inside my ribs. When we finished, Alma folded her hands. "You are not being cruel," she said. "You are correcting a mistake that went on too long." I nodded, unable to reply. Outside, as I stepped back into the gray Tacoma afternoon, the city noise felt distant. In my coat pocket, my phone buzzed with another message from Logan, the screen lighting up with his name. For the first time in years, I did not rush to answer. I was making tea when Logan's first call came in. I let it ring. He tried again 10 seconds later, then a third time. I finally answered because I knew that level of persistence meant something had cracked. The moment I picked up, his voice exploded through the phone. "Mom, what did you do?" I kept my tone steady. "What are you talking about?" The power bill bounced. He snapped. "The gas bill bounced. The car payment bounced. Everything bounced. I went to check the bank and the transfer wasn't there. The money you always send. Where is it? I stopped the transfers. I said, "You stopped them. Why would you do that without telling me because I am done funding disrespect?" There was a beat of stunned silence. Then his breath hitched with anger. "You cannot just cut things off like that. We have responsibilities. We have a household. You have a household," I corrected. "And you have a wife. And you both have the ability to work and manage your own expenses. That is not the point." He shouted, "You know how tight things are right now? And yet you spoke to me as if I were an inconvenience." I said, "Not a human being, not your mother." Tessa's voice came faintly in the background. "Put the phone on speaker. She is not going to walk all over us, Mom," Logan said, ignoring her for a second. "Just fix this. Please, I do not need a lecture. I need you to make the payment." "No," I said. "I only support people who treat me with dignity. You showed me exactly how little you think of me. I am reacting accordingly." "You are being dramatic," he said. "You always make things bigger than they are." I made things bigger. I asked quietly, "Logan, you humiliated me in front of 22 people. That was stress." He insisted. "You took it the wrong way. It was not about stress." I said, "It was about entitlement." He went silent again, and I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, the ones that always sought the fastest way out, rather than the right way out. Tessa's voice cut in sharply. "You know what? Let her go. She wants to play hardball, fine. We will figure it out ourselves. Tell her we do not need her." Logan hissed. "Tessa, stop!" But she did not stop. "Put her on speaker. I want to hear her admit she is abandoning us." I did not wait for him to comply. "I do not owe either of you my silence or my income," I said. "You both built your life assuming I would always catch you. I am not catching you anymore. You are heartless." Tessa barked. "He is your only child. You are choosing pride over family." "No," I said. "I am choosing self-respect over misuse." I ended the call before she could answer. I put the phone on the counter and let the quiet settle. My hands shook slightly. Not from fear, but from the weight of saying things I should have said years ago. Then the phone buzzed again, this time a text. Not from Logan, but from Tessa. "You are making a mistake. Logan will realize what you are doing. When he does, he will never forgive you. Think about your future before you burn everything." Another message followed immediately. "You were lucky we let you live with us at all. Do not push your luck again." A chill ran through me. Not because of the words, but because she truly believed them. I stared at her messages, then set the phone face down, letting them disappear into the dark screen. Logan thought his struggle was beginning, but he had only just reached the first drop. Some people fall because the world pushes them. Others fall because they never learned how to stand. I heard the pounding on my door before I even reached the hallway. 3 quick blows, then a pause, then 3 more impatient, angry, unmistakably hers. I opened the door only halfway. Tessa shoved it the rest of the way with her shoulder. "You think you can just disappear and ruin our lives?" she snapped, stepping inside like she owned the floor beneath her feet. "You think you get to cut us off and walk away?" "Hello to you too," I said. She ignored that. Her eyes were wide. Her mascara smudged. "Logan is losing his mind. The bills are piling up. The credit card company called this morning. They said your name was removed. How could you do that? Do you want him to fail? I want him to stop depending on something he never earned." "Oh, spare me," she hissed. "You act like this little house makes you powerful. You act like you are the only one who ever struggled." She jabbed a finger at me. "Boom. Let me tell you something, since you love the truth so much." I folded my arms. "Go ahead." "I grew up with nothing," she said, voice rising. "Not nothing as in tight on money. I mean sleeping on floors, wearing shoes 2 sizes too small, praying the landlord did not change the locks. I swore I would never live like that again. That is understandable, I said quietly. No, it is not understandable, she shot back. It is humiliating. It is. And I refuse to go back to that life because you suddenly want to play independent at nearly 70 years old. Her mouth twisted. And for a second she looked exposed raw, unguarded. But then she snapped the mask back into place. You think Logan should magically know how to manage finances? How would he? You spoiled him. You threw money at him every time he made a mistake. You set him up to fail. And now you are mad he did. I took a breath. Maybe you are right about some of that. But the solution is not more dependence. It certainly is not disrespect. She laughed, then sharp. Unhinged. Disrespect. You have no idea what real disrespect is. Real disrespect is working 20 hours a day just to be treated like trash because your clothes do not match everyone else's. Tessa. And that is why, she continued, steamrolling over my voice, we were going to help you. We had a plan. Logan and I were going to move you into a nice assisted living facility. A classy one. Not like those depressing cages most old people end up in. We would manage your accounts. Make sure you were safe. Make sure you were not wandering. Manage my accounts, I asked. My voice steady. She froze. The words had slipped out too easily. She knew it. I knew it. She tried to recover. I mean, supervise. Support. Make sure you were not handling things alone anymore. So, your plan, I said, was to take over my finances and place me somewhere I could not interfere. She swallowed hard. You make it sound sinister. It is. Her face twisted with frustration. You should be grateful. We were trying to help you. No, I said softly. You were trying to control me. She let out a furious breath. You are making a mistake you cannot undo. Logan will side with me. He always does. That is his choice, I said. Her eyes darted toward the safe in my study, then back to me. Something calculating flickered across her face. I stepped between her and the hallway. Do not take another step. Tessa's jaw clenched. You have no idea what you have started. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. The silence that followed felt like the first moment of a storm turning into something far more dangerous, because now the truth was out. And truth never burns only one person. I sat at the small table in my cottage that night. The folders still open from earlier, and a memory from decades ago settled over me like a heavy shawl. It came without invitation, but not without purpose. Ellis had been the one who first believed we could build something steady, something that would carry our family through the years. 2 rentals, he'd said, tracing plans on a napkin in our old kitchen. Nothing fancy, just enough to give us breathing room. He worked double shifts, and I worked evenings at the shipyard office. We saved every spare dollar, packed lunches, wore the same coats winter after winter. When the 2 small rental properties finally became ours, Ellis lifted me off the ground in the living room, laughing like a man who had outrun the world. Then one morning, he clutched his chest while fixing the porch railing. He died before the ambulance even arrived. Logan was 7, too young to understand death, too old to forget it. After the funeral, the world fell squarely on my shoulders. Bills, mortgages, keeping tenants, keeping Logan fed, keeping myself upright. I worked later hours. I sold Ellis's tools. I learned how to unclog drains and file taxes and negotiate with roofers because there was no one else to do it. And I hid every struggle from Logan. When he wanted a new bike for his 9th birthday, I bought it with a month of overtime. When he cried because another boy had nicer shoes, I found a second-hand pair and cleaned them so well he thought they were new. When he asked, Mom, Are we poor? I told him no and smiled until he believed it. Maybe that was the first mistake. Years later, when Logan was in his 20s, one of the rentals needed repairs I could not afford. The bank offered refinancing, Logan said confidently. Let me handle it. I know how to talk to lenders better than you. He took the documents, returned with a stack of forms, and told me exactly where to sign. I did not find out until months later that he had signed away a large portion of the equity for his own business loan. He used the property as leverage, something he later swore I must have misunderstood. We lost that rental. He blamed me. You should have read more carefully. He snapped. Why would you trust me with something that big if you were just going to mess it up? I had swallowed the words back then. Now, in the quiet of my cottage, I spoke them aloud. You signed away your future because you thought you knew better. My phone buzzed. A message from Logan, another attempt to justify, to smooth over, to avoid responsibility. I did not open it. I ran my fingers along the edge of the paperwork spread before me. The history of every sacrifice I made to keep him safe from a world he needed to learn to navigate. The past had shaped him, and now, the truth. The whole truth would shape whatever came next. 2 days passed before the first call came in. It was Elaine, my sister, her voice sharp with shock. Marion, she said, did you know there is a video of Logan shouting at you? It is everywhere. My friend sent it to me this morning. Is it real? Yes, I said. It is real. She went quiet. Then she whispered, I never thought he would talk to you like that. I did. I replied, I just never thought he would do it in front of so many people. By noon, 3 more relatives had called, all wanting to confirm what they had seen, shared in group chats. Someone had clipped the exact moment Logan slammed his hand on the table and yelled. Tessa's laugh echoed behind him like a spotlight. The comments varied. This is terrible. He needs to apologize. Tessa pushed him into it. Poor Marion. Not once did anyone say I had misunderstood. Not anymore. In the afternoon, I stepped outside to check the mail. Mrs. Granger waved from her porch. I saw that video. And she said gently, Are you all right? Dear, I am. I answered, Thank you. He should be ashamed, she muttered. All of them should. A few doors down, Mr. and Mrs. and I, Patton avoided eye contact as they carried groceries into their house. They had always sided with Logan, always said he was under pressure, and I should give him space. Today, their silence felt like an admission. That evening, my phone buzzed again, this time with a notification from a local Tacoma community forum. Tessa Haverhill's boutique received 8 new 1-star reviews. Each one mentioned some variation of the Thanksgiving blow-up. The owner mocked her elderly mother-in-law. This family treats people terribly. I will not support a business run by someone who speaks this way. I had never asked anyone to defend me. I still did not want revenge through strangers, but the truth had found its way into the world, and people were reacting as people do when they finally see what has been hidden. A few minutes later, another message arrived, this time from Rowan, the teenager who had sent me the original video. Mrs. Haverhill, they are getting dragged online. I hope you are okay. I typed back, Thank you for your kindness. I am fine. At nearly 8 that night, Logan finally called. The moment I answered, I heard how different he sounded: tight, exhausted, embarrassed. Mom, he said, work has been a nightmare. People saw the video. My co-workers will not look me in the eye. My supervisor asked if everything was all right at home. What did you tell him? I asked. That it was blown out of proportion, that it looked worse than it was. He paused, but I don't think he believed me. I waited. Tessa is furious, he continued. She says people are out to destroy us. People saw what happened. I said simply, nothing more. You could have told me someone was recording. You could have spoken differently, I replied. He let out a long breath. I feel like everything is crumbling. You built your life on something unstable. That is not fair, he whispered. It is the truth. I said, truth has its own timeline. He did not argue. Not this time. On the line. I could hear his breathing shallow, uneven, as if he had realized too late that actions ripple long after the moment of impact. The lie he had built around himself, the one that framed him as the responsible son, the provider, the victim of my neediness, had cracked wide open the moment the world saw who had really been holding everything together. And once truth steps into a room, there is no pushing it back out. I did not hear from Logan again for 2 days. When he finally called, his voice carried a stiffness I had never heard, like someone trying to hold together the pieces of a life cracking from the center. Mom, he said, I went to the bank today. I waited. I needed answers. He continued. About the mortgage. About the house. About everything. There was a long pause, and then a shaky breath. They told me the house is not mine. I closed my eyes. Not from triumph, but from the weight of the truth he had been forced to face. They said your name is on the deed. He said quietly, not mine. They pulled the documents. They showed me the signatures. His voice dropped. They told me you refinanced 3 years ago and took full ownership. I did. I said, I had to. You were drowning in debt after your second business failed. The bank would not approve you a loan. You never told me, he whispered. You never asked. I replied. His breath hitched. I thought I was the provider. I thought I was carrying the weight. I thought the house was my responsibility. No. I said I was carrying you, and the house, and the responsibility. He swallowed hard. They pulled the payment records too. I know. I said, 90%, he whispered, voice cracking. You paid 90% of everything. Utilities, mortgage, repairs, all of it. He went silent again. I imagined him sitting in his car outside the bank, hands shaking on the steering wheel. The image he had carefully curated Logan the provider. Logan, the responsible one, melting into something unrecognizable. I do not understand why you would do that for me, he said. Because you are my son, I replied. I wanted you to succeed. I wanted you to have a stable life, and instead, he said, brokenly, I used it to throw you out of your own house. That is what happened. The shame in his breathing was almost painful to hear. I went through the paperwork when I got home, he continued. I wanted to understand how things got this bad. Then his tone shifted. A stunned edge creeping in. There was something else. He said, in the stack, a vendor order from 2 years ago. I thought it was yours at first. But the signature, it was not right. I knew exactly what he was talking about. Tessa forged it, I said softly. He inhaled sharply. You knew I found the document last week. And yes, the signature was fake. He cursed under his breath, a low, bitter sound. She said she never touched anything that belonged to you. She swore it. His voice cut off. I confronted her. What did she say? She lied. He said, then she said it did not matter because you had more than enough. She said you would never notice. He paused. She also said you would not live long enough to need the money. My stomach tightened. I did not know she was capable of that. Logan whispered. I did not know any of this. You did not want to know, I said gently. That is different. He let out a long exhale. Shaky and uneven. I was cruel to you. He said, I was blind and arrogant. And now everything I thought I built, I am realizing you built it. All of it. His confession held no pride. No defenses, only the bare truth he should have seen years earlier. I let the silence stretch. Logan had more to say. I could feel it through the phone. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. I want to fix this, he whispered. I do not know how, but I want to. I did not answer immediately, because remorse means very little until someone is willing to stand inside the wreckage they created and rebuild without expecting rescue. I heard the knock before I saw his shadow through the frosted glass. Not the pounding anger from Tessa, not the impatient tapping he used to do as a teenager. This was slow, uncertain, almost pleading. I opened the door just enough to see his face. Logan looked like he had not slept in days. His eyes were red-rimmed, his shoulders slumped. His confidence drained out of him like water leaking from a cracked bucket. "Mom," he said, voice rough. Can I come in?" I stepped aside without speaking. He entered quietly, almost carefully, like he was afraid he might break something just by breathing. He sat at the table but did not touch the chair. I do not know where to start. You can start anywhere, I said. He took a long breath. Then, I am sorry. For Thanksgiving. For yelling. For embarrassing you. For acting like, he winced. For acting like you owed me something. It was the apology I had waited years to hear, but it came wrapped in hesitation. In practiced lines. In the same tone he used when talking himself out of trouble. You are not apologizing, I said softly. You are performing. He looked up sharply. I am not. Yes, I said. You are apologizing because things are falling apart. Not because you understand what you did. His jaw tightened. That is not fair. It is honest. He stood abruptly, pacing the small kitchen. I'm trying to make this right. Everything is a mess. People at work keep talking behind my back. Tessa is out of control. The mortgage people think I am a joke. The whole city thinks I scream at old women. You screamed at me. I corrected. Your mother. His voice cracked. I know. He ran a hand through his hair, breathing hard, like each word he spoke scraped his throat raw. I did not realize how much you were doing, he said finally. I thought I was doing everything. I thought I was taking care of us. He let out a humorless laugh. Turns out I was the one being taken care of. He sank into the chair. When the bank showed me those documents, I felt like I had been punched. I did not even recognize the signatures, the dates, the payments. And then seeing that you paid so much, his voice shook. Why did you never tell me? Because I thought protecting you was love, I said. I thought if I took on the burden, you would grow without feeling weighed down. He stared at me, guilt collapsing into exhaustion. I am sorry, he said again. This time, his voice was quieter, realer. I am sorry for everything. I let the words hang there a moment before I reached into the drawer beside me. I pulled out a folder and placed it in front of him. What is this? He asked. Copies, I said, of everything you saw at the bank, and some things you did not. He hesitated before opening it, his face tightening as he flipped through each page. Mortgage statements, loan summaries, repayment confirmations, Tessa's forged signature, the refinance agreement transferring the house entirely to me. His breath hitched. I cannot believe I let her sign your name. You let her do many things, I said, and you blamed me for the consequences. He closed the folder slowly, his hands trembling around the edges. I do not know how to come back from this, he whispered. I sat across from him. You do not need to come back to anything. You need to build something new for yourself, without expecting me to carry the weight. He lifted his eyes to mine, broken, humbled, stripped of the arrogance he once believed was strength. I want to be better, he said. I nodded once. Then start by respecting the boundaries that should have existed years ago. He lowered his gaze, absorbing that truth with a heaviness he could no longer ignore. Love had carried him far. but boundaries would decide whether he could ever stand on his own. I had barely finished washing my breakfast cup when the pounding started sharp. Violent, rattling the frame the same way it had the last time she stood on the other side of it. I opened the door a crack. Tessa shoved it the rest of the way with her palm. She stormed inside, eyes wild, hair disheveled, voice shaking not with fear, but with rage. "You need to fix this," she snapped. "Right now. Today." I closed the door behind her. Slowly. "Fix what exactly?" She whirled around. "Everything. The payments. The mortgage. The transfers. The reputation you destroyed. Do you have any idea what you've done to our lives?" "I stopped funding them," I said simply. "You ruined them," she corrected. "Logan nearly lost his job today. People are whispering behind our backs. I cannot get a single customer into my boutique. I had 2 cancellations this morning, too. They said they do not support thieves." "Interesting word," I said. "Thieves." Her jaw tightened. "Whoever is spreading rumors. You need to shut it down. Tell people the video was taken out of context. Tell them you moved out willingly. Tell them you're unstable or something. I do not care, just fix it." "No," I said. She blinked, stunned, as if she had never heard the words spoken to her before. "No, correct?" Her breath quickened. "Do not test me, Marion. I will take this public. I will drag your name through every corner of Tacoma. I will tell everyone you manipulated us, that you mooched off us, that you forged my signature," I said calmly. Her entire body went still. I saw the document. I continued. "The business order you signed with my name, a minor purchase, but a major crime. If anyone dragged reputations through Tacoma, it was you." Tessa's lips parted, but no sound came out. "This is ridiculous." She finally managed. "That was one time one, and it was an emergency. The emergency," I said, "was your spending." Her composure cracked. "You think you can trap me with that? You think anyone will believe you over me? I do not need anyone to believe me." I walked to the small table by the window, opened the drawer, and pulled out a large envelope. I placed it gently in front of her. "What is that?" she demanded. "Official repayment demands," I said. "Prepared by my attorney. You owe me for every loan I covered, every late payment I made, every debt that had my name attached but your benefit behind it. I am not paying you," she shouted. "You will," I said, "or the bank will pursue it. And they will pursue the forgery as well." She ripped open the envelope and skimmed the documents, her face draining, then flushing, then contorting with disbelief. "This is thousands," she whispered. "How am I supposed to pay this?" "You should have thought about that before spending it." She slammed the papers on the table. "Logan will never agree to this. He will stand with me. Logan already saw the forge." I said, "He knows." Her breath stuttered. What I nodded once. That was the moment she cracked. She grabbed the chair, pushed it over, paced in a frantic circle, muttering to herself, half in denial, half in fury, all unraveling. She cursed me, cursed Logan, cursed the world for not bending the way she expected it to. Then she spun toward the door. "You are going to regret this," she hissed. "You have no idea how far I can go." She yanked the door open and stormed out, screaming something unintelligible at the sky as she crossed the yard. I closed the door behind her. Tessa thought she was falling because of me. She was falling because the lies she built finally had nothing left to stand on. Logan showed up just after sunset, standing on my porch with his hands shoved into his jacket pockets. He looked smaller somehow, like a version of himself he had kept buried under pride for years. "Mom," he said quietly, "can we talk?" I stepped aside and let him in. He sat at the kitchen table but did not touch the chair back, as if afraid it might creak too loudly. "I have been thinking," he began, "about everything, about the house, about the money, about how I treated you." I waited, letting him speak without interruption. "I was always insecure," he said. "Even when I was a kid, you handled everything so well, every crisis, every bill, every problem. You never complained. You always found a way. I hated that I needed you to do what I should have been able to do myself." His voice dropped to a whisper. I hated how small it made me feel. I breathed out slowly. "You were a child, Logan. I was supposed to take care of you." He shook his head. "But I didn't grow out of it. Not really. I kept expecting you to clean up after me. I kept thinking the world owed me the stability you built. I told myself I was the man of the house, but the truth is, I was scared and ashamed. And every time I failed, I blamed you because it was easier than admitting I couldn't handle my own life." It was the first time he had ever peeled himself open like that. I reached across the table and touched his hand. "I forgive you," I said, and I meant it. But forgiveness is not the same thing as going back to how things were. I will not support you financially again. That part of our relationship is done. He nodded immediately. "I know. I do not want that anymore. I need to figure out how to stand without leaning on you." A moment passed before he spoke again, softer this time. "I left Tessa." I looked at him carefully. "You did?" "Yes," he said, voice steadying. "After I saw what she wrote to you, after I confronted her about the forgery, I realized she never cared about fixing anything, just about controlling it. Controlling me, controlling you. I cannot be that man anymore." "What did she say when you left?" I asked. "She screamed." She said I was choosing you over her. Maybe I am. But more than that, I am choosing a version of myself I can actually respect." He exhaled shakily, like the words had been trapped inside him for too long. "I am starting over," he said. "New apartment, new budget, new everything. I feel like I am at zero." "Zero is not a bad place," I said softly. "Zero is a beginning." He looked up at me, tired, humbled, but clearer than I had seen him in years. "If starting from zero is what it takes to become the man I should have been," he said, "then maybe zero is not a punishment. Maybe it is the first real chance I have ever had. For the first time since Thanksgiving, I felt something warm settle inside me, not hope exactly, but the fragile possibility of it. Logan arrived first. I knew he would. His knock was hesitant. 2 soft taps before he let his hand fall away. When I opened the door, he looked like a man walking into judgment. "Mom," he said, almost whispering, "we need to talk." "We do," I replied. "Come in." He stepped inside slowly, eyes scanning the cottage as if searching for mercy in the furniture. Before he could sit, I placed a sealed envelope on the table. "What is this?" he asked. "Read it." His hands trembled as he tore it open. The eviction notice slid out first, followed by the car repossession order, and finally the formal termination of all financial access. His breath caught. "You are evicting me." His voice cracked. "From the house, it is my house," I said. "And I am no longer allowing you to live there under the illusion that you earned it." He sank into the chair, staring at the pages like they were written in a language he did not understand. I do not know what to say." "You do not have to say anything," I replied. "You only have to accept what is already true." The front door swung open without a knock. Tessa burst in, fury radiating from every inch of her. "You!" she shouted at me. "You think you can ruin our lives and walk around proud of it?" Logan groaned. "Tessa, not now." She ignored him and marched straight to the table. "I know you have something for me too." "Where is it?" I reached into the drawer and placed her envelope beside Logan's. She snatched it, ripped it open, and her face drained as she read the repayment demands every debt, every covered loan, every line item she had counted on me never bringing up. "This is a joke," she said. "You cannot expect me to pay all this." "I can," I said calmly, "and I will." She threw the papers down. "You want to see Toxic? You have not seen anything yet. You think you can destroy my business, my marriage, my reputation. I did not destroy anything," I said, meeting her eyes. "You did." For a moment, the room went completely still. No shouting, no breathing. Just truth settling into the air like dust. Tessa's voice dropped into a low hiss. "Logan, say something." He looked at her, really looked at her, and something inside him shifted. "I am done," he said quietly. "With all of this, with pretending everything is fine, with letting you turn every problem into someone else's fault. Mom is right. We need to stand on our own." Tessa stumbled back as if he had slapped her. "Are you choosing her over me? I am choosing myself," he said. For the first time, she let out a strangled sound, grabbed her purse, and fled out the door, spitting curses all the way down the porch steps. The silence she left behind felt like a long exhale. Logan lifted his eyes to mine, broken and bare. "Mom," he whispered. "What do I do now?" I stepped closer, laid my hand over the envelope still shaking in his grip, and said the words that settled everything. "You learn, and you stand without stepping on me." He closed his eyes, absorbing the weight of it not as punishment, but as truth. A truth that had waited decades to be spoken. Outside, the evening light dimmed, stretching shadows across the porch as Logan finally faced the life he would have to rebuild from the ground up. Freedom does not always come quietly. Sometimes it arrives when the last door you ever expected to close finally shuts behind you. 1 year later, my cottage felt fuller than it had in decades. Not crowded, just full in a way that warmed the walls instead of bending them. Mrs. Granger sat on my sofa, retelling an old story about her first disastrous turkey. My neighbor Henry brought over a homemade pie. 2 of my cousins, the ones who had checked on me after the video spread, helped arrange plates on the table. There was no tension, no whispered judgment, no one waiting for me to slip. Just people who wanted to be here. As I poured cider into Mrs. Granger's mug, a knock sounded at the door. A soft one, careful, almost shy. When I opened it, Logan stood on the porch, alone. He held a small pumpkin pie in both hands like it might break if he breathed wrong. He looked healthier than the last time I saw him, less frantic, more grounded. Thinner, but not fragile. Older, in the way growth ages a person far more honestly than years do. "Hi, Mom," he said quietly. "May I come in?" "Of course," I said. He stepped over the threshold and paused, taking in the cottage. The soft chatter, the smell of roasting vegetables. "It feels different here," he murmured. "It feels mine," I answered. He nodded, understanding more in that moment than he had in the whole first half of his life. We sat at the small table off the kitchen. He placed the pie between us. "I made that," he said, "by myself. It took 3 tries. I smiled. "Thank you. I am proud of you." He exhaled slowly, bracing himself. "I want to tell you something, and I want you to hear all of it." I folded my hands. "Go ahead. I have been on my own since everything happened," he said. "New apartment, new job, new budget. I cook, I clean, I pay every bill myself. Some months are tight, but I am doing it. For real this time. That is good," I said softly. He rubbed his palms together. "And I am sorry. Not the kind of sorry I gave you last year. I mean the real kind. I treated you like a safety net, not a mother. I let Tessa twist everything. I let my own pride do the rest. His voice cracked. You deserved better than the son I was. The humility in his tone felt like healing, finally choosing a direction. I forgive you. I told him. I did not wait for an apology to do that. But forgiveness does not erase boundaries. Those stay. He nodded, no argument, no defensiveness, only acceptance. Tessa, I asked. He shook his head. Her boutique shut down. The bank is forcing repayment for everything she owes. She blames everyone but herself. I signed the divorce papers last month. It is final. There was a certain peace in his voice. Even when speaking about the ruin, he looked at me steadily. I am not asking for help. I am not asking for money. I just want you to know I finally see you clearly. I placed my hand over his. Then that is enough. Voices from the living room drifted toward us, laughter, clinking plates. The kind of joy that never showed up at Logan's old house. Oh, I said, remembering. I have something to tell you too. He straightened. What is it? I donated the old house. I said, the one you lived in. It is becoming a women's shelter next spring. I put it under Ellis's name. His eyes widened with surprise, then softened with something like admiration. He would have loved that. I know. For a moment, Mom, we simply sat there, mother and son, not perfect, not repaired in full, but honest with each other for the first time in years. Then I squeezed his hand. Come join us. There is room at the table. He followed me into the living room, where conversation wrapped around him like a blanket he had never known he needed. Later, as I stood by the window watching the last light fade, I felt a peace that did not ask for permission and did not apologize for its existence. For the first time in my life, Thanksgiving was not the celebration my family gave me. It was the one I built for myself. If this story moved you, tap like, drop a comment, or subscribe for more.